So, my name is Brian Hull. I'm at the Eccles Library here at the University of Utah, and I'm going to go through the first two items on our agenda. It looks like our font doesn't work on PowerPoint, so that should be the title of our presentation, but it just squares. So, I'm going to talk about a new digital publishing site that we've been developing to kind of serve as the content promotion and visualization kind of piece for the collections that are in the Solfal system that I'm sure you're all familiar with. So, let me go. And the caveat on this is that this is still in development. So if you go to this site right now, do understand that some things may be broken or not working because it's not officially live yet, but we're very close. So, if you go to library.med.utah.edu/publishing, you can follow along. So the idea of this site was that we have a multitude of different collections that are serving different communities and different purposes. So we have a collection, or maybe two, in the Mount West Digital Library, as well as some of our own projects, such as the Neuro-Ophthalmology Virtual Education Library, and then specific projects through the University of Utah Health Sciences and those colleges and departments that we work with. So we kind of wanted an overarching location where we could have all of those collections from across the board showcased in one spot, make it nice and visual, and hopefully easy to just browse. So we have different programs, we have educational specific collections. We're a big repository for publications that are coming out of the University of Utah Health Sciences. And we also have a lot of luminaries from U Health that we wanted to be able to showcase and be able to highlight. So one example is Edward Hashimoto, who is a very prominent professor of anatomy that was at the University of Utah. And so we have a whole slew of items collected on him that's in Solfal. So what we wanted to do is to be able to pull the items within the collection and display it inline in this website so that it is displayed nice and easily. So you see here's all of the objects of Edward, and just kind of like how it looks when you do a query on MWDL or Solfal. It displays here nice, and when you click it, it goes to the object. So that's one cool thing. Another thing is we wanted to be able to utilize those objects and build exhibitions about these individuals and about some of the projects that we're doing. So, for example, we have this lovely kind of linear magazine style exhibition about Edward. And so this just goes through his life, kind of his story, and has a lot of good images that we've collected through the library as well as probably gathered through WDL. So, it's great to have a huge collection. It's great to have 34.5 million objects in a repository, but not everyone is an expert at searching. Not everyone is doing a huge search on objects. There is a place for browsability and just really highlighting and showcasing really special objects or people or places. And so we wanted to do that with this site and with these exhibitions, is to be able to kind of take the cream of the crop and really highlight what was really important to us and what we think would have a lot of value as kind of a top level showcase of our repository. So the next thing that's kind of tangentially related is this Rubor magazine. That's a yearly publication that the University of Utah School of Medicine does, and it's actual medical students who are creating artwork And that artwork then gets compiled into this publication on a year-to-year basis. So we have the PDF version of this publication in the repository. And what we wanted to do was to kind of use this as a development piece of our digital publishing service. So in addition to having the PDF issue in our very familiar repository, we also had our web team build a digital online version of this magazine. So you can read the full issue on this website and have everything displayed inline. And this is just kind of a nice way to, again, further enhance your repository and kind of give a central location for your materials that you're using. This one is pretty easy because we're getting born digital items just to begin with, so it's easy to compile it into a website, whereas, if you're doing a lot of cultural heritage stuff where you're doing a lot of scanning of photographs or, old items, that's a little more difficult. However, we end up with these repositories with large collections of wonderful digital objects, and it's great to be able to develop platforms to be able to kind of showcase those. So we may plan on trying to make the platform available. We developed this in WordPress, so that might be something down the line when we're kind of finished developing, where we could have a GitHub repository or something with kind of the tools that we use to create this, so that, if you have a web team or access to people who are knowledgeable, it might be something of use. And of course, if you have any questions, come grab us. So that's my part of the spiel. I think Carmen is next.
Hi, I'm Carmen. I'm a digital publishing coordinator at Eccles. Can I just hook this? Yeah. It might be easier to balance everything. Right. So I'm just going to kind of take everyone through one of our digital exhibits. That is technically still in development, but I think at this point our senior web designer, Peter Strohmeyer, is pretty confident that we're there. We'll see. Okay, so in 2005, in conjunction with our neuro-ophthalmology virtual education library program, it's a mouthful, we just call it novel, the Eccles Library received a collection of research that includes over 15,000 research cards and 10 research journals. These belong to Dr. Irene Lowenfeld, who was a professor of ophthalmology and a researcher of the human pupil. Beginning in the 1940s, she conducted over 50 years of clinical research and published a textbook on the pupil as the sole author, and this ended up at around 2,300 pages or so. Dr. Lowenfeld's research card catalog kind of became a jumping off point for our Lowenfeld collection. We began digitizing her research cards in 2006, and we picked this up again this past year. And we've conducted extensive research on Dr. Lowenfeld's life and work, and we've pulled from all sorts of different sources, including an interview that was published in the Journal of Ophthalmology in 2006. So on this landing page, if you go to biography, we have a PDF viewer of that interview, and she's awesome and hilarious, and it's actually really worth a read. She was a really amazing lady, and I'll get into that in a little bit because I'll walk you through really quickly the digital exhibition. Okay, so here's just on the pupil page, we have a description of the textbook, so her magnum opus. And so it kind of just is an outline of the different sections, number of pages, and then we have a book review. That was also published in the Journal of Ophthalmology. So highlighting a textbook publication in this way, we think will also pave the way to garner interest from future collaborators that might want to feature their own publications. Okay, and then I'll just quickly kind of show you the collection in solar. So going into her catalog items, these link to the collections in Solar Falcon. And the cluster headaches we just digitized this past year. We decided to do this on some advice that we received from a neuro-ophthalmologist at the Moran Center, who's currently researching cluster headaches and migraines, and she recommended that we start from there because it directly links to kind of current research that's happening. So, researchers can go in and actually look at Dr. Lowenfeld's research notes and might glean some useful information from them. So, going in here, this is kind of how it's all set up, and we can just go into one of the items, and that's not a cool card. I'll pick a cool card. Because her cards were just incredible. They were all color-coded, and like she often would include her very personal opinion on the article. She'll say, this was very disappointing, or she didn't hold back, and she would write her, her personal opinion right on the cards. So those are pretty cool. All right, so I'll just go to the exhibit really quick, or exhibition. And this was, like I said, developed by our amazing senior web designer, Peter Strohmeyer. So we just click on the screenshot to go to it, and it is set up a lot like the Hashimoto exhibition that Brian just showed you. But, I thought I would just kind of, I'm not going to read it word for word, but, her life was pretty incredible. So we have a section on her early years, and these are photos of her family. These are her parents, and this is Irene on the left and her sisters. The Lowenfeld family lived in Germany but fled after the rise of Hitler, and they ended up in New York City in 1938. So then if we go up here, we can go to the next. Well, okay, so up here at the top, you can click on it, and it'll take you right to that section in the exhibition. But scrolling down is kind of fun because we have these big quotes that we pulled directly from that interview with her. Okay, so we have a section about her as a collaborator. So when she was 18 years old, she began her work with her mentor, Dr. Otto Lowenstein. He hired her to help him in his research lab in New York City, and they were researching the human eye, but the pupil in particular. So she was 18, and English is her second language, and she just right off the bat starts working on this. So, and then we keep going, and in this section it discusses her her doctorate, which she received in the mid-50s from a university in Germany. She traveled over there to present her thesis and then received her doctorate. Came back, and in 1957, she and Dr. Lowenstein invented a machine that they called the electronic pupillograph, which basically, this was the first machine of its kind, and it was designed to eliminate, here's a picture, it was designed to eliminate the manual process of measuring the human pupil during response tests. So pretty incredible what they were able to do together. Unfortunately, Dr. Lowenstein passed in 1965, and at that point they had decided to write the textbook together. So a lot of their research was the result of a collaboration, but at that point she just decided to continue on by herself. So fast forward about 50 years or so, and she publishes her book. And so, we have this section, the pupil. So we are, and then scroll down and we have a picture of one of her cards. I'm going too fast, I'm sorry. And then resources and credits. So Peter is in the process of developing a section on her methodology, and this is kind of where we kind of got caught up a little bit because it's so extensive, as you can imagine, and so it's actually taken a lot more time to develop that, and so we're going to be adding that on later. But the cool thing about this template is that, or cool thing about Peter is he's so good at this stuff, but you can just go in and, add that information later. Okay. Yes, I have one more. Do you want this here?
Oh, problem. Hi, I'm Cy Maestas, and I'm speaking on the Nanos examination techniques for neuro-ophthalmology, also known as the NEXT curriculum. This was an educational project that turned into an educational product that the Eccles Health Sciences Library worked on in collaboration with the North American Neuro-Ophthalmology Society, NANOS, which is an important partner that the Eccles Health Sciences Library has worked with for many years. Oh, yeah, or I'm fine. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. So the next project came about when we started looking closely at item use statistics and site analytics. And we discovered that many of our most popular items in the collection were examination technique videos. And this was because many of the learners and students were most in need of educational materials that demonstrated how to do examinations. And this was true not just of people here at the University of Utah, but all over the country and indeed all over the world. Remote learners, people who needed to review for tests, people who needed to go back and refresh their memory, and not just learners, but practitioners already working in the medical industry. And so we decided, hey, maybe we can do an entire educational curriculum on examination techniques. And so we took this idea to the Medical Society and began a collaboration project entirely on examination techniques for visual complaints. And the end result is what you can see here in StatRef. But before we got to this point, we had to go about this in a very careful and deliberate way to curate very high quality material in order to present peer-reviewed, medical quality learning materials for everyone who would eventually view this material. So this was a national collaboration done with the help of what we eventually called section editors. And members of the Nano Society in excuse me, a next curriculum board took sections of the curriculum to manage and oversee personally in order to give a high degree of oversight of the quality of materials that would go into their selection. This ensured that the material that would go into their selection was of the highest quality, met all of the educational standards overseen by Nanos that met their educational goals, and also was relevant, applicable, demonstrated the techniques correctly, and sometimes the material had to be redone as the project matured and transformed. And eventually, it took about 18 months, I would say, to reach full maturity. And eventually we had a project that could be licensed through StatRef. And so Eccles is able to receive royalties now through StatRef. And so the royalties received is able to help this project become much more sustainable. And this is able to give us not just a source of sustainable funding, but also provides a model for new projects and new products in the future going forward, not just with Nanos, but potentially other partners as well. Thank you.